This story is called Brotherly Love. It's a true story about an old black man that I knew when I was growing up as a kid. And it goes like this. Just because old Jim Burke was a black man, he was shunned by the grown-ups in town. Every day he'd walk in and he'd look for work, but there was never a job to be found. You see, the kids in town all laughed at him when they'd see him walking by. They laughed at the shabby old clothes that he wore and at the leather patch that covered his eye. They laughed at the way that he walked with a limp, and they made jokes about the shoes that he wore. They laughed at the way that he stuttered his words when he stopped at the old general store. But to me, Mr. Burke was a hero. He was everything I couldn't be. He'd done all the things that I'll never do, and he'd seen things that I'll never see. I remember the first time I met him was at our favorite fishing hole. There he quietly sat on a half-rotten stump with a line on an old bamboo pole. For hours we sat and we talked and we fished, and I knew that I'd made me a friend, and to this very day I'll never regret the many hours together we'd spend. Every day after school I'd stop by and talk, if only for a minute or two. I just had to see if he was all right and if there was anything he'd have me do. But then one day after school I felt something was wrong, so I ran to his cabin to see. For somehow I felt in the back of my mind that my old friend Mr. Burke needed me. As I opened the door of his old wooden shack, I saw his gray head start to nod. Then I softly walked in without saying a word, 'cause I knew he was talking to God. Then he sat straight up in his old overstuffed chair, and as he laid his small Bible aside, he said, "There's some folks on earth who just don't understand, and there's a few who never have tried. But," he said, "God doesn't care if you're rich or you're poor, or if in a big mansion you live. He don't even care if you can't go to church or how much money you give." He said, "I'm sure in my heart it don't matter to God if it's tattered old clothes that you wear. It don't matter to him what color you are, or the style, or the length of your hair." He said, "God doesn't care what religion you are, or the fact that at some time you've sinned. All he cares about is your soul and your heart, and of the person who's living within. So let's be cautious, my friends, as we walk through our lives, for we must prepare for our home up above. But just remember these thoughts while you're still here on earth, 'cause there ain't nothing like brotherly love."